Hello, cards, and welcome to Davison Decision. I am your host today, Cooper Austin.
And I'm Ethan Brokaw, and we are Davis in Decision.
We sure are, and we have young voters here today. We have Quinn McCracklin and Skylar Jordan. Say hi, guys.
What up?
Hi.
All right, so I just want to start off from the top. What made you guys want to come here today?
Well, for me personally, I love learning about politics. Government, APUSH have been some of my favorite classes, and I'm happy to get involved in the political process.
That's awesome, Skylar.
I am here because I feel like there are a lot of struggles going on, specifically for the young adults that are starting life, and I feel like these topics would really motivate us to make a difference in the world.
That's awesome that both of you wanted to come here today. We absolutely appreciate your time. I'm sure the viewers appreciate it too. So we're going to start off with the number one issue. Recently, DTV sent out a poll to the student body, and gun issues, gun control, and gun violence was considered the number one issue here for Davison high schoolers. And we want to ask you, just starting from the top, as high school students, we definitely have some complicated feelings when it comes to stuff involving gun control. And we want to ask, how do we feel like we can prevent gun violence while also respecting the Second Amendment?
I feel like respecting the Second Amendment would almost be like if you own an armed weapon, you would have to understand that you're mature enough to respect the Second Amendment and not overuse it, because I feel like a lot of people that have it will overuse it without realizing they're overusing it, which can in turn a lot of conflict between the country on different sides of the party.
So do you feel like it's something that, like, when it comes to, like, gun control laws, it's not something that should be as considered as much?
I guess what I'm saying is, like, I'm very 50-50. It doesn't really affect me, but I feel like between the people who do feel strongly about this topic, I feel like it's, well, if you want such privilege, you have to understand where you're coming from with it and make the right choices for it. And I feel like that goes along with literally any topic.
All right, thank you. Quinn?
So for me, it's really just a conversation about like who should be eligible to own a gun. I think in a lot of cases, especially in cases that lead to tragedies, obviously the guns are falling into the wrong hands of the wrong people. So I think we as voters need to come up with a better system, and the legislators in charge, to better screen people before they get guns and ensure that the people who do have guns are the right people having guns.
I agree.
We typically hear the situation where people either think it's the mental health that's the issue or the guns that's the issue. Do we think that it has to be one of those options, or do you think there's something deeper or a combination between the two?
I personally see it more as a mental health issue than the gun issue because, at the end of the day, guns are objects and people kill people. So I think it's very much a who is owning the guns and who is using them, not the guns themselves.
All right.
I think it's a reflection of both, but I agree with Quinn. I think it's more of a mental health situation than it just being the gun itself. But because I think it's both, I think it's like really and truly, I think it's a maturity thing. Like, I feel like if you have mental health issues, your first choice shouldn't be to choose violence, personally. I think you should recognize it and then reach out for help. So along the lines of mental health issues, I think it's a maturity thing.
I think a lot of our generation stands like that. And speaking of healthcare, Ethan, can you talk about the next topic for us, please?
Now moving into healthcare, what are some issues do you feel that are important to what we have?
Revolving healthcare.
Revolving
to the young people in our system.
Well, I think a big hot ticket item this election is definitely abortion, especially for young voters and people who are starting their lives. I think the ability to have an abortion is going to be something that determines this election, and I think it is a very pressing issue for many young voters out there.
I think for me personally, as a female, it's a very, very sensitive topic. Not that I've been through it or that I've been experienced with it. I'm a female, and anything could really happen to me, and whichever way the law falls under, I feel like it could affect me deeply. Personally, I feel like abortion or anything related to that matter should be my own choice. Um, Not saying I don't see where the politicians are coming from. I see what they mean by how they think it's wrong and how, they don't agree with it. I also think that it could determine my own life. If I needed an abortion, that the result could be either I don't get one and end up passing away, or I do get one and save both my life and anyone else's life regarding my death. So I feel like it's very much my own choice and whoever else would fall under regarding needing an abortion.
I think that's a very interesting perspective. I see a lot of people in our generation make the idea that the only people that should be considering policy on abortion are females, and they believe that the only ones that should be making that policy is the ones that are directly affected by them.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can relate to that argument?
Yeah, I feel like like I said, where I see the gentleman specifically coming from regarding abortion as a female, I don't think they should be making that decision. I'm not saying their feelings are invalid, and I'm not saying that their decisions are right or wrong. I am saying that men should not be making that decision for women because they don't know what it's like. It would be like women making a decision for men that regards their health care and their lives that us women don't go through, and they have to just sit and deal with it. So,
Do you have any thoughts on that, Quinn?
I, as a man, I'm not gonna, speak, this way or that way, but I think it is to kind of contrast slightly. I think it needs to be more of a societal question and not just a woman question. I think people, both men and women need to come together and, vote on it, like as a state or as a community. It's something that affects almost everyone, between the doctors and the patients and really society as a whole. So I think as we move forward and we see different laws being created around it, it will be interesting to see how that affects people and particularly who is voting on these laws.
yeah.
It's definitely such a complicated topic, and we do want to thank you guys for bringing that up. I think that's something a lot of our generation do believes is a top priority for this incoming election. Yeah. Another heated topic definitely is immigration, specifically the border. So how do you guys feel about securing the border and just preventing illegal immigration?
So I think securing the border is something that definitely is necessary. I think as we're seeing kind of currently right now, our Social Security programs are being strained by more and more people as we start to see questions revolving around Social Security and Medicaid and Medicare. So I think having a tighter border that can, and I'm not saying like restrict immigration, but I'm saying restrict like illegal immigration, and being able to better control that would be very crucial for the future of this nation.
Yeah, I agree where he's coming from. I think, yeah, I don't think restricting it completely and restricting immigrants is a good idea, mainly for the reason that, there has been some changes to America in the past few years, but I do think that there are some people in different countries that still think America is one of the greatest countries and still want to live in America. That's their choice, whether America is or not. But that's their choice, and they should have the right to make that choice. But yeah, so that's why I'm saying I don't think, where Quinn said, I agree. I don't think shutting it down completely is the best choice, but I do think restricting it some way, somehow, personally, I don't know how, but some way, somehow is the best choice.
Definitely immigration's been part of this 2024 election. It's awesome to see both of you guys are able to agree on that the fact that it shouldn't be taken out on immigrants, but we do need to secure that border. Yeah. And what do you feel about the sentiment that's coming from the 2024 election? I mean, I think the most obvious stuff is the Springfield, Ohio situation where Asian immigrants are being basically harassed over a comment former President Donald Trump made in a debate. How do you guys feel about like that sentiment, and how do you think that relates to, in general, being open-minded with each other?
You can go ahead.
Well, I think it's very important to make sure we don't generalize immigrants in a way that can definitely be negative or, I guess, controversial, because no immigrant is the same as the other immigrants. So I think it is very important that we're able to draw distinct differences between, who is coming in and how they get in the country. So I believe when we shouldn't be alienizing immigrants as a whole, but instead we need to be focusing on, I guess, the truth of it and really truly what the immigrants are doing to this country. Which, I mean, people are they come in here and they build their own businesses, and that's a great thing. So I think it's definitely wrong that they're getting ostracized like this, and I think that maybe the former president should have been a little bit more careful with what he was saying during that debate.
Skylar?
I very much like what he said about no immigrant is the same, especially since where they're coming from. Every immigrant comes from a different culture, a different household of what they grew up in, even if they're in the same culture. There's different age, there's different genders, there's different pronouns. Like, I feel like there's a whole range of immigrants, and that I agree with Quinn. I feel like every single one of them is different in their own way. They have their own reasoning. And I mean, yeah, I kind of agree that the former president should have been a little bit smarter with his choice of words. But yeah, I just feel like when you're restricting the immigrants, it is not based off of where they're coming from or who they are or what they've experienced or anything like that. So, yeah.
Hitting on the current administration in the White House, the Trump campaign has done an interesting job at trying to paint Vice President Harris as the border czar during all this. Do you feel like this current administration has some responsibility to bear in the situation that's currently going on?
I 100%. I think that the current administration has to take responsibility for the current state of America. Currently, we are seeing prices come down and inflation's down, so that's very good. But I think that the way they kind of been reflecting the previous inflation and the previous flow of immigrants in the border is something that the current administration needs to come clean on and kind of open up on. It's okay to admit that maybe you could have done some things better, and then talk about how you're going to fix those things in the next administration. You have Vice President Harris. She's sending mixed signals, saying that in one way she's going to continue the Biden administration with these policies and that they work together on these certain policies. But in other ways, she's also saying that she wants to move away from the Biden administration and bring her own sort of policies. So it's kind of a question of really, where do you stand on that, for the current administration?
I think also with Vice President Harris, I think she's also not justifying anything that she's made a bad decision on if she has. It's just I feel like if I were in her position, not only would I have to follow the same steps as the former president Joe Biden, but I would also have to be my own president. You have to also think about if she gets elected, she will be the first woman president ever for the United States. I also feel like that's a big load on her shoulders, and she's very excited for it. But I do agree. I think anything that has been happening during the past 4 years, specifically Harris, who is now running for the Democratic Party, I think they need to own up to it. I don't want to use the wrong words, but the easiest one I can come across is that it's been very slow in the past 4 years. I don't want to say lazy, I don't want to say laid back, but it's been very slow. Anything that's been made of a change has taken a while, and if that's how long it takes, then so be it. But I don't know, I just feel like when Joe Biden took office, it was almost like the first 2 years, you kind of forgot that Joe Biden was president because not a whole lot was changing, not a whole lot was happening. Granted, there was a lot that needed to be changed or needed to be fixed or needed to be cleaned up, however you want to word it. So I do think that it does take time, but halfway into his presidency or his first term, it took the 2 years, in my opinion, that it showed a difference. And like Quinn said, inflation is down, prices are down, but I feel like that took quite a few years till that actually started happening.
It's a very interesting point. All right, let's move topics. Ethan, hit them with the next.
All right. What issues involving crime are you highly concerned about?
Well, I think for many young voters out there, I think one of the major issues of crime, especially students who are now looking at college and other workplaces, is sexual assault and sexual violence. When you're looking at what college you want to go to and where you want to spend the next years of your life. It is something you have to take a look at. So I think we need to see maybe stronger policies on stopping or reducing sexual violence, and especially for like early colleges and young Americans across the nation.
I agree with that. I think sexual assault and sexual harassment leading up to rape or just leaving it at that, I think it needs to be restricted highly, not just in colleges, but I think in high schools as well, because I feel like a lot of high school administration, not saying ours, I'm saying in other schools, they almost forget that that's a thing. They almost forget that school, like kids come to school and they go to school and they leave school. I feel like there's a lot happening behind the classroom or, in passing hours. And I feel like the administration overlooks that, not saying ours does, but, in high school in general. So, and including middle school, you have to think about it. They're 14, they're, 13, 14, 15, and you don't realize that they could also be endangered, right? So I agree with Quinn. I think there needs to be a restriction not just on colleges, but high school and middle school as well. But I think another crime, it really relates back to gun laws, just as far as schooling goes, right? I feel like there needs to be, I think there needs to be some extra step, right? We, as a school, we had a threat a few weeks ago, and we have countless of security guards, amazing ones at that. And I feel like there needs to be a law in place or a rule in place, not just that the security guards need to be heightened. So I feel like that's another topic as well.
To add to this, when I was talking about sexual violence and all that, I was thinking maybe, I think a lot of young voters would like to see stronger laws against that, or like either bigger penalties,
Yes.
more permanent than just the slap on the wrist that many people get away with today.
Yeah, I like that. I like that metaphor as the slap on the wrist, because, like I said, I feel like when they overlook it, when that's brought to their attention specifically by parents, when parents get involved, I feel like the administration is like, oh, we'll put them in detention and whatever. But yeah, I like that. I like how it almost looks like it's a slap on a wrist, or just a sit and time out, instead of an actual move and change that's being made to where there is none of that anymore in that school, in that district, in that state, and so on and so forth.
And then this is also a problem with not just young Americans and college campuses, but also more people in power. You see many celebrities, tons of victims coming forward with their cases about these, and then about these celebrities, and all they're doing is like paying fines, or they're able to get out of it in court. So I think we need stronger policies that protect women and protect people from the sexual violence that plagues America today.
One last thing I want to touch on that is I'm almost, I don't want to say proud, but I'm almost intrigued of the fact that sexual assault and sexual violence is now a real thing or a known thing, to where the celebrities are now speaking up about it, and to where famous peoples and influencers and people we look up to and follow our trends to. I feel like now that they're speaking up and now that they are opening up about it, I feel like us younger people, including us young voters, can actually say something about it and actually can talk about it without anybody looking at them with an eyebrow or something. So, yeah.
So it's an interesting conversation talking about like celebrities getting involved in these situations. And again, this election, we've seen a lot of celebrities come forward following like endorsements, like specifically Taylor Swift endorsed Kamala Harris. Do we feel like these celebrities actually like should have a role in determining young people's, specifically their vote?
I feel like to an extent, yes. I feel like they could easily abuse this power because they are rich, they are popular, they are, following or leading the trends. But I feel like if they're at the right mind and if they have the right motivation in their heart and their soul for the young voters, I feel like then, yeah, you can. But again, I think it's a maturity thing, For Taylor Swift, for example, if she's got a ton of fans, if she were to say, I'm a Harris fan or I'm a Trump fan, then I'm going to be honest, a lot of those fans are going to follow either party just because she said that, and she's a celebrity and she's really cool to some people. And personally, not just you say this, you have to follow it up with why you're going for that president or why you're going for that candidate. So to an extent, I think yes, but again, it's a maturity thing.
I would have to agree with the yes, but I don't see it as like a yes or no question, like whether they should be allowed to, because we all enjoy the First Amendment right. Like we can all endorse whatever candidate we want. So I think it's more our job as voters and people, as followers of these influential figures, to not only consider, why they are endorsing these candidates, but also the policies, the specific policies that they are endorsing, and how that could be both beneficial to us, but also importantly to the person endorsing it. So you're kind of like peeling back the curtain and seeing exactly why is Taylor Swift endorsing Kamala Harris, or why is
Right.
Elon Musk endorsing Trump?
Right. And I think that matters more than who you're voting for, who you follow is, well, why? And in my family, it's very 50-50. And when we have discussions about it, sometimes it's aggressive, but the easiest answer is, okay, well, why? Why do you feel this way? Why does this benefit you, right? For Trump supporters, a lot of people feel as though he will make a difference for them and it will be beneficial for them. And then there's Harris, who it's the same thing. But I feel like as a president, you can't just be... I feel like as a president, you would have to make a decision for the vast majority. And with touching on that, I feel like, yeah, if Taylor Swift goes for Harris or Trump, she has to say why, to then that can determine, does it benefit you or does it not? And for others as well.
All right, go ahead, Quinn.
You go, Cooper. It's
No,
okay.
you go ahead.
I just want to say, when you're voting, I believe the most important thing of voting is how it's going to impact you, not how it's going to impact the celebrity you like or the person you follow, but what is the best choice for you.
I agree. I think when you vote and you make a decision, it is about you and it is about what is beneficial to you. And, unfortunately, I'm just going to use him as an example. If I feel one thing about something and he feels the opposite, that is okay. That is not wrong. It's just how you go about it. If I feel one thing and he calls me names and he sits there and says that I'm just dumb because I feel this way, then that's not okay. But we can have a mature conversation based off of our differences, and then we can both go to the booth and vote something different. That's totally fine. And our president, whoever it is, when they're voted for and it comes out to the final draw, that is based off of the vast majority, not just because it was cheated or anything like that. So I just feel like if you're feeling something different than the vast majority, just so happens to be, that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
I absolutely love that. How do we feel like, ending off the show before it closes things off, how do we feel like our current politicians, more divided than ever, can help unify us once again?
Well, I think the presidential debate, if anyone watched, I think that was a great example of how you can kind of bring people together. You had two Midwestern vice presidents going up there, and while they were attacking each other and their respective president running mate, they were also complimenting each other and saying how they agree with the opponent and conceding some points. So I believe having debates more structured like that, and instead of the debates like the Trump-Harris or Trump-Biden debates where it was just like ruthless attacking the whole time, I think that opens the discourse up to more collaborative measures and can unify the country in a way that we haven't seen in quite a while.
For someone who didn't watch the vice president debate, I still agree with what he said. It touches back to what I said. If we have differences, there is a way to go about it maturely and respectfully. I feel like that's something that needs to be just a blanketed statement overall is, will that president respect you? Will that colleague respect you? Will that person respect you and your opinions and your feelings, right? Me, touching back to one of the earlier topics, if I feel like abortion is okay and that's my feelings, that is my own. If you disagree with that, that's totally fine, but you're still going to respect me and respect my feelings, and we can have a conversation about it. And I feel like once any candidate starts seeing that and starts seeing that they're still a person they're still someone with feelings, they just have differences, then I think that'll turn us back into one nation.
It's absolutely awesome. All right, thank you guys so much for joining us. Ethan, go ahead and close off the show.
Had very good conversations with us, giving your honest opinions about how you feel about what's been going on. It's very good to hear it from it. Also, the election day is November 5th. We got all you need to know, and don't forget, the big election is on our website, dtvnews.org. And thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.